Hello and welcome to Lab Matters, a webcast from Kaspersky Lab. I'm here with Tillman Werner from our German office. Tillman is a virus analyst who specializes in malware related to botnets. And I invited you here today to talk a little bit about botnet mitigation, some of the work that the good guys have done to do around takedowns, around helping to mitigate some of the threats from botnets. And I want to start obviously with one of the bigger botnets that has been in the news over the course of the last year or so, which is Conficker. I just saw a final report that says there's still millions of infected machines out there. But in a general sense, the threat has been somewhat mitigated. Explain how the threat has been mitigated, yet those machines are still, millions of machines are still infected. How does that balance?
Okay, so right now we still have around 5 million infected machines, and the mitigation is more or less aiming at blocking the command and control channel. So we are trying to prevent the bot herder, the right. operator of the botnet, from commanding.
Right, from controlling those infected machines. So we've successfully done that?
That's more or less successful, yes. It's based on some sinkholing, so we basically try to null route all infected machines to one of our machines. So no other person can jump in and act as a command and control server or command the machines.
Right, so the guy who, or the group who originally created the botnet now do not have access to send controls to those infected machines.
Correct.
Is there ever a chance we'll get those machines disinfected? Or are we just resigned to the fact that those machines will forever be infected?
Well, if you take into account that these machines are infected for more than 2 years now, then I think Conficker will still be around in a couple of years. So, I mean, of course, the numbers will lower, but I mean, machines get reinstalled, people switch to a new right. operating system, stuff like that. But I think it will take some years until we totally got rid of Conficker.
Would you say the threat has been nullified?
It's
or
not.
Is there a risk? Is there a worry that something can be reinvigorated around Conficker?
Well, there is a possibility to gain control over the botnet again. I don't really want to talk right. about that in public because it's a bit delicate.
Right.
But I think the bot herder can regain control at any time.
We also, there's a bit of an ethical, legal, somewhat nightmare among the security research community because there are technical measures that can be taken to completely disinfect machines. Can you talk a little bit about some of the, how researchers and the security research community has been hamstrung by legal issues and, where you can, there's a technical measure that can be taken, but because of, laws in different countries and around the world, you really can't go that extra step to do maybe do a complete disinfection or remove a botnet off the internet. Talk a little bit about some of those issues you guys face as you do this research.
Well, botnets like Conficker, one of the characteristics of these botnets is that they are kind of decentralized. So there is no real central entity that can be approached or mm-hmm. attacked or whatever. Another approach, or the option that's left, is to approach the infected machines themselves. For example, what you can try to do is you can try to remotely disinfect, remotely clean those machines. But of course you cannot go to 5 million people and ask for permission to do so, so you would have to do it without permission. And right. this is where law doesn't allow us to do it right now.
Right, you really can't touch someone's machine without their consent, without their
exactly.
agreement. But there have been efforts in the past, most recently with the police, law enforcement officials in the Netherlands around disinfecting a particular botnet. Talk a little bit about what they did without going the extra step of actually disinfecting the machine, actually using executable to perhaps send users to information places that they can find disinfection type information so that they do that extra step. We've seen that in the past. Talk a little bit about that. And do you think that that's where eventually we'll have to go just to deal with this botnet epidemic?
First of all, I think what the Dutch police did is a very good thing. So that's the way to go. That's what we need to do in the future as well for other botnets as well. But it's a much simpler scenario than the Conficker scenario.
Right.
What they had was a centralized botnet. So they had their central entity where they could well, basically issue their own commands. So what they did was they pushed commands, removal commands to all infected machines. So there was no need to access all the different infected machines one by one.
Right. Do you think, going forward with some of these centralized botnets, that's all? Because we've also had some success around Microsoft and Bredo Lab and some other botnets where they went to some legal efforts, taking legal control over some of the physical things. Do you think that's what we'll start seeing a lot more of? I mean, why have there been, the bigger question is, why have there been so few success stories when we have a big botnet epidemic?
I think it's twofold. So first of all, people are concerned to come near those legal boundaries or into this gray zone, so to speak.
Right.
That's one thing. And we need more people like the Dutch police who are,
proactive and
just try to do new things and
be a little more creative around being aggressive.
That's one thing. And that's actually possible in a lot of cases. It wasn't done in the past so often, but it's possible and should be done more often in the future. The other thing is that the technical complexity of the botnet is a very important point. So you can imagine if the botnet is very complex, you need to have a lot of analysis work in order to understand it and in order to find ways how to approach the particular thing. So the examples we have seen in the past where police or researchers have been successful were the more simpler ones.
Right. Some of the more complicated ones becomes a lot more involved trying to do mitigation there. Do you think we'll ever get to a stage where the law is a lot more black and white, or are we resigned to the fact that we're going to live in this gray area world just because of how laws are different around the world? In a perfect world, how do we fix this? Do we have one body that perhaps takes the lead in looking around some of the legal issues, creating loopholes? What's the perfect world scenario?
Unfortunately, I don't have the ultimate answer, but I think it's necessary to advise, our policymakers. It's our obligation as researchers or as technical people to tell them what we need, and we need to advise them in the process to come up with new laws that help us mitigate the threat.
And the hope is a lot more people are as aggressive and as creative as the Dutch law enforcement folks that maybe we start to push the envelope a little more.
Exactly.
Thank you very much, Tillman, and thank you for watching another edition of Lab Matters, a webcast from Kaspersky Lab.